Good evening, I'm Anthony Robart. This is Crime Beat.
Tonight, a beloved father is targeted.
They said to me, please sit down, and then I knew right away. When they said that, I knew something was really wrong. I said, what happened? They said, we believe he's been murdered.
But why?
He was someone who would rather help you than hinder you, so we couldn't figure out why he would be targeted.
Every once in a while you come across something in a file that just, you can't rationalize, it just doesn't make sense.
It was so unbelievable that, and I said to them, I said, oh, you've got the wrong person. I said, that's not my dad.
Here's Nancy Hixt with the evil and senseless plot against Ray Johnson.
On a blustery night in January of 2009, a man was trying to stay warm in a makeshift camp in a secluded part of Calgary when he was startled by the sound of spinning tires.
I don't even think he was asleep yet. He was just awake and he hears it. Well, who's out there at that time of night? So he just takes notice of the fact that there's this white truck there and it's spinning this tire because it has an incline, and there was it had melted with the weather and then froze again. So the truck had some difficulty getting up that incline.
Patty McCallum is retired now, but for 33 years, she was an officer with the Calgary Police Service. She said the next day, the man made a surprising discovery.
He came across this box, or this trunk, and he was quite enamored with this box because it was rather unique. He was curious enough about it, approached the box or the trunk.
The trunk was closed with a wire. Anxious to see what was held inside, he untied it, lifted the lid, and quickly shut it.
And he saw a foot or a leg.
The man stepped back. He decided he needed to call police.
So he goes to the 7-Eleven and they don't let him use the phone. So he goes to another local restaurant where he phones the police from there and explains what he sees, which then prompts the call to homicide. Officers get dispatched, they confirm they saw the box lid had been opened. They pressed basically and backed out. He said, yep, looks like a body. Folded into the trunk. They just saw the sock and the foot and the leg, and touched the body and basically believed there was no life. So they backed out, they secured the scene and said, yep, we'll have to have homicide here to check.
That afternoon, on Saturday, January 31st, 2009, Patty McCallum was called in to investigate.
So you wonder what's the significance of putting somebody in a trunk and leaving it?
An autopsy conducted today has determined this incident was a homicide, with the cause of death being blunt force trauma. Police have yet to determine a motive for whether this was a targeted or random incident.
Ray Johnson met his wife Marion in Enderby, BC. They worked together in a logging camp.
Mom and Dad, kind, giving, helpful people, always willing to help people, always kind to people, always put other people first. Dad would do anything for anybody. He'd give you a shirt off his back.
Bonnie Gillard is Ray and Marion's daughter, the youngest of 6 Johnson kids, 5 girls and 1 boy.
I can remember when I was little, I wanted to get up early in the morning and go and have breakfast with my dad before he went to logging. So I'd get up bright and early in the morning just so I could have breakfast before he went to logging. He's very attentive, very kind.
Lori Bowie is Bonnie's sister and the second youngest of the Johnson kids.
I don't think that they did a lot without each other. We used to come home tired sometimes, and I can remember Mom would be tired herself, and so Dad would give us a bath or do our hair, and yeah.
And then they opened a store up in Enderby, and Mom was running it, and then it kind of took off for them, so Dad quit the bush and started working full-time in the store. They had clothing and shoes and boots, and they sold a lot of stuff to the logging industry down there, so they had a lot of logging boots, stuff like that.
In 1980, Ray and Marion moved to Calgary.
And then they started up that little secondhand store, and he had antiques there in there. And he spent a lot of time refinishing a lot of that furniture, and then he'd sell it to people that were in more need of something they could afford. So, and quite often he would give them things. He was that kind of a guy, pretty kind.
Eventually, they sold the store, but their passion for antiques and collectibles was lit, and they started running a booth at a Calgary flea market. Everything was going well until 2000, when Ray got sick.
Dad's cancer was found first, and he wasn't getting better. Bonnie was helping him out quite a bit, and then Mom got sick.
She started with lung cancer, and they removed her lung, and then she went in for a hip operation shortly after she could get off the oxygen from having her lung removed. And they did the hip operation, and then shortly after that they found out she had liver cancer as well.
Ray and Marion battled cancer at the same time, but the illness spread in Marion's body, and the next year she passed away.
And it was very quick. Like after the liver cancer was found, it went quickly.
Oh, he was devastated, lonely and devastated. He started really counting on our family to be, to be with and to enjoy life with after that, because he was just devastated by it.
He wasn't coping well. He really missed her.
Ray eventually beat cancer. Without Marion to keep him company, he tried to stay busy and turned to his passion for antiques.
He loved the flea market, he loved going to garage sales, and he loved people. He loved being around people. The flea market was really good for him after Mom passed, because it gave him that opportunity to socialize with so many people, and he really enjoyed that.
And he always had cash. He paid everything in cash. And I did say to him, Dad, you shouldn't be carrying that, around. And he says, oh, Lori, you've got to trust people more. He was very trusting.
Ray turned 77 in 2009. By then, he had been cancer-free for a while. Ray's life wasn't about making money. It was about making memories. He lent out tools, offered discounts, and often let people pay later. If he could help someone, he would. He rarely spent money on himself, so it was a pretty big deal that winter when he decided to treat himself. He splurged on a brand new white GMC pickup truck.
Yeah, he set his sights on it, went and bought it, and then come home with it and had me take it for a test drive. He was quite excited that I went for a test drive.
Bonnie is the only one of the Johnson kids to live in Calgary. She made a point of spending time with her father, like she did when she was a kid, before he went to work. That's how they started their day on Friday, January 30th, 2009.
I stopped every morning, got a coffee from him. He liked that, so I'd stop in and see him and check on him and get a coffee and be on my way. Friday morning, I called him and said, let's do coffee out this morning, just for a change, because I always stopped and got a coffee. So we went up to McDonald's and had a coffee and muffin together. And he was looking in the paper for garage sales, and I was heading off to work, and we it was just casual, and we sat and read the paper together. We probably more than we talked, we sat and read the paper together.
After breakfast, Bonnie and her father said their goodbyes.
Always gave him a hug, every morning.
Bonnie went to work, and her dad planned to go home before heading out again.
Almost every Friday he was out garage selling.
Later that night, Ray planned to meet up with Bonnie and her family for dinner.
Friday night, I got home from work, and we always went out for supper on Friday nights to the mall with him. That was just what we did every Friday night. And we phoned him, and there was no answer on the phone. And we thought, well, that's really strange, because he's always home ready to go to the mall.
Bonnie decided she better stop by his place before she headed to the mall for dinner.
Oh, I know. We probably called a couple times and then drove by his house and checked his, and then, knocked on the door, checked to see if he's home. But his pickup wasn't there, so we thought, well, he's not home. Which, like I said, was so unusual because we've been doing this for so long. And he never went anywhere without telling us that he was going to be going, like if he was going to be going out of town or something, he would have told us. So we knew that, so we thought, well, he just has to be at a garage sale. Just, late getting home from a garage sale. So we went ahead for supper, came back and checked again, and he still wasn't home. And that's when I probably started really getting a little concerned.
Bonnie and her husband went home confused. She kept calling her dad, but there was no answer. The next morning, she tried again, over and over, but nothing.
And the next morning, we drove by his house again, and again we thought, well, he must be out garage selling. And then that evening again, we tried to call him. So Saturday evening, we went back to the house again, and nothing had changed, nothing had been put away, nothing had changed. And that's when we really started getting worrying.
Coming up, it was out of character for Ray to disappear. As the hours passed, his family started to fear the worst. Ray Johnson always stayed in contact with his family. No one could have predicted what happened to the 77-year-old grandfather. We now return to Nancy Hixt.
Bonnie reached out to her sister Lori in Red Deer, an hour and a half north of Calgary.
So Bonnie called me on Saturday and she said, Lori, is Dad up there? And I said, no. I said, why? And she said, well, it's odd. And then she told me that he was supposed to come to their place or they were supposed to meet at Market Mall for supper the night before, and he didn't show.
I phoned the hospital as well and asked if, they had him admitted to hospital in case he'd been in an accident and couldn't contact us.
By Saturday night, there was still no sign of Ray. Bonnie decided to report him missing.
They said check with his neighbors, and they asked me, do you think he would have went out of town? I told them, no, that he would never do that without talking to us. And they said, well, wait to 48 hours, and if he's still missing, then to contact them.
The next afternoon, police contacted Johnson's family.
When I got to the house, there was 2 detectives standing outside, plainclothes detectives, and they said to me, have you got a key for the house? I said, yeah. So they said, can we go in? So we went in, and they said to me, please sit down. And then I knew right away, when they said that, I knew something was really wrong. And then when they told me that they'd found my dad, and I said, what happened? And they said, we believe he'd been murdered. I just lost it. I couldn't even absorb that. It was so unbelievable that, and I said to them, I said, oh, you've got the wrong person. I said, that's not my dad. I just kept saying to the police, oh, that's not true. It hasn't happened. It's not true. And then they just said to me, yeah, it is true, and it has happened. And then I phoned Lori, and I was almost hysterical. I couldn't even hardly tell Lori what had happened.
I just remember I can't even tell you how it sounded, Nancy. It was the sound in her voice was unbelievable. And I don't remember much. I just remember telling our family that Dad had been murdered. I remember I knew I had to go down to her. And I grabbed, I just, yeah, I just grabbed what I could find and threw it in a suitcase. My daughter was trying to help me, but I can remember I was shaking really bad.
Ray Johnson was stuffed in a trunk, his body dumped by the train tracks.
We found a bag, plastic bag, with this gentleman, with ID in it. It had a bloody glove and an Alberta Healthcare card and a Blue Cross card. Same name. So this had blown 10 to 15 feet away from where the trunk was. So when we had a tentative ID, we knew it to be Alfonso or Reno Alfonso Johnson. He later, we became informed by a number of people that he went by the name of Ray Johnson. As we came to know him, he was a very likable, lovable man who kept to his own business. Like he was someone who would rather help you than hinder you. So we couldn't figure out why he would be targeted.
Early on, Ray's family met with homicide detective Patty McCallum.
That week I asked Patty where it was, and she said, well, I'll take you guys there, but she said, you're not going alone. So she drove us over there. It was hard to imagine that somebody would be able to just dump somebody like they did. Just put somebody in a box and just dump them with no regard.
His family was desperate for answers.
I think the biggest thing in our mind was finding out who did it and helping the police with their investigation.
4 days after Ray Johnson was killed, his family spoke to the media for the first time.
Sadly, we know that my grandpa was viciously beaten. We can only hope and pray that he didn't suffer.
We know that Mr. Johnson enjoyed a hobby of bargain hunting, including attending garage sales and flea markets. One of the investigative avenues we are pursuing is that Mr. Johnson was targeted as a result of this activity.
Ray Johnson would scour the newspapers and search the internet for goods to buy, then fix up and resell at his flea market booth. It's believed he had an appointment related to that at noon on Friday, but that's the last anyone can track Johnson.
He's so helpful, and these guys, if they would have said, that they needed some money or something, I'm just confident that he would have helped. He just helped everybody out. We're pleading with the community to bring any information they might have so there can be justice for my grandpa and our family.
Ray's brand new truck was also missing. Police scoured the area where his body was found and interviewed the man who discovered the trunk. Hours earlier, he heard a truck spinning its tires on the icy road. He told police he got a good look at the vehicle. It was a newer model white truck.
Yeah, so that you're thinking, okay, so maybe there's significance to this truck, right? So it becomes a little bit more, it's more than just a random detail. There's potential here that this truck that he heard and saw at 2 in the morning is perhaps when it dropped the trunk.
Our assumption at this time is that he was out buying something for his flea market when someone took advantage of him.
Family tried to come up with any information that could help, and that's what led police to Ray's good friend, Mike Mooney.
Mike, he was a very close friend of Ray's, and he was probably most likely the last person to see him alive. They met for coffee first in the morning, and then they went to a garage sale. He felt that Ray seemed rushed. He just knew that there was a place he was going to. It was somebody he had met before.
Mike told police he found an ad online earlier that winter for a moving sale. Sellers were offering everything from furniture to electronics. Ray followed up on the ad and met the sellers, a husband and wife. At that time, Ray bought a chess set. Then, a few days before he went missing, the couple called Ray, offering other items for sale.
And this guy had phoned him about coming to get it, so he thought if he didn't get down and looked at it, somebody else was going to buy it. So that's why he was a little anxious to get down and do that.
Coming up, for police, this was the first real lead. Could this couple be involved in the disappearance of Ray Johnson? That's coming up on Crime Beat after the break. Ray Johnson's disappearance was now a homicide. Just days into the investigation, police got a tip they hoped would lead to unraveling the mystery. We now return to Nancy Hixt with the evil and senseless plot against Ray Johnson.
Police needed to track down the 2 online sellers Ray Johnson planned to meet up with the day he disappeared. To do that, investigators turned to his friends at the flea market for help.
It's just a domino effect. There were several people that once you talk to one, they would say you should really talk to this person or this person. So we had some people that we needed to talk to, And then if somebody says, oh, I think the guy he had met was a guy named Jason. Okay, so now we have a name. And this is the phone number that they use for, yeah, he uses the usedcalgary.com ad. So these are the details you get.
Police were able to track down an address associated with that phone number, and that allowed investigators to identify the couple. Their names were Jason and Tasha Hubler.
They were unemployed people. They had issues, you know, family issues. They were struggling with financial issues. We also find that he's had run-ins with police. There's some fraudulent behavior, etc. He in particular, there were people who described his behavior sometimes as violent. He had a bad temper and he would threaten people. So we had information about his bad temper.
Police decided to do a drive-by of the Hublers' house. That prompted a major turn in the investigation.
One of the detectives discovered what appeared to be blood in the back lane outside the garage.
Police got a warrant to search the home, but by then, the couple was gone.
The objective now is to find this couple, because they're clearly persons of interest that we need to talk to.
In this case, Global News learned about the home police were searching.
We have 2 media outlets who have information, and we're just saying, please don't, because right now we can't find these people, but we now believe that they're suspects in this case. We get commitment not to air anything until later.
Given police had 2 possible suspects who had no way of knowing police were on their trail, Global News agreed to wait. But the other media outlet decided to go with the story.
In this case, once the newspapers went out and had photographs, it basically told the suspects, okay, we're on to you. Because up to that point, they didn't know we were suspects or persons of interest. So one held true and one did not. Once the news came out and showed the photographs, it prompted these people to leave town.
Police needed to act fast and come up with a new strategy.
We used the family to reach out and say, you know, trying to plead with these people to, you know, come forward. You know, bring the truck back, come forward, let's get an explanation for what happened.
This wall shows his heart. This is who he was, about his family.
Our dad wasn't just our dad, he was our friend. And that's what's hard. Somebody took him from us before his time.
I think they need to come forward and they need to turn themselves in and face justice. It's time to put closure on this.
In the meantime, forensic crime scenes investigators scoured the house, looking for evidence of what had happened to Ray.
People watch a lot of CSI, so they think that a little bit of bleach is going to take everything. Attempts were made to clean it up, but it wasn't done well. So there was still evidence. There was blood stains, a blood splatter that was still found, walls, mirror in the bathroom.
Then, another break in the case. Despite media coverage, Tasha Hubler still attended a court appearance for an unrelated matter. Police were able to covertly follow her from court to an apartment complex downtown. Not long after, both Tasha and Jason Hubler left the building and got into a white truck. A surveillance team followed the truck until finally police caught up with the couple west of Calgary, just outside of Banff.
The man in this police vehicle is now in custody, being questioned for the murder of 77-year-old Ray Johnson. He was arrested by the RCMP near Banff in a truck that matched the description of Ray Johnson's missing 2008 GMC Sierra extended cab. It's believed the suspect was on the run. He was arrested with this woman, his wife. She's also now in police custody.
1 week to the day after Ray Johnson disappeared, Jason and Tasha Hubler were charged with murder.
Both accused have a history with police. Jason Hubler's criminal record dates back 14 years, with a variety of charges ranging from assault with a weapon to arson, theft, and mischief. Tasha Hubler is also charged with possession of stolen property and fraud, unrelated to the Johnson case.
What made no sense to anyone who knew Ray Johnson is why.
Coming up, police interrogate the accused killers to find out the motive in this senseless homicide. A husband and wife were in custody for killing a senior, and now detectives pushed for a confession. We now return to Nancy Hixt with the evil and senseless plot against Ray Johnson.
After their arrest, Jason and Tasha Hubler were taken into separate rooms at police headquarters and questioned by detectives.
So Tasha, I'm Detective Darren Brooklyn.
These interviews are done by officers skilled in interrogation techniques. The question was, would they tell the same story? And would their version of events match the evidence police collected from the two crime scenes? Jason told the detective Ray Johnson slipped on some dog food on the stairs.
You guys didn't check the basement stairs.
I beg your pardon?
You guys didn't check the basement stairs.
Well, I know our crime scenes unit does all the checking and they're supposed to comb the whole place. What's the stairs have to do with it?
That's where he fell.
That's where he fell. Okay. Let's start with how Ray ended up there.
Going downstairs looking at some of the stuff that I had downstairs.
So what stuff was he interested in?
Tools, futons.
Tools and futons?
I had 2 tents down there. There's camping stuff, a bunch of other stuff.
Yeah. And I haven't seen your place. What are the stairs like?
A death trap.
Death trap. Yeah.
The first one's about a 1.5 to 2 foot drop.
Yeah.
It's cut out of the basement floor.
Okay, and so what door did Ray come to? Like, how did he get there and all that?
He came in the front door.
Yeah.
I told him to go downstairs, and that's where most of our crap was, because we didn't have a room in that tiny little house.
Yeah. So you told him to go downstairs?
He wasn't moving.
Wasn't moving? And then, so what did you do?
I just started to panic.
Tasha Hubler told a very different story than her husband. Police said her explanation seemed more plausible than Jason's.
The lights were off. He wanted the lights off. I'm not sure why. And then, as he came through the door, he hit him.
What did he use to hit him?
There was a couple poles. He hit him quite a few times.
Hit him quite a few times.
Yeah.
Tasha told the detective Ray Johnson collapsed, and after he was on the ground, the vicious beating continued.
Jason hit him again, and then he was making noises, and Jason made me pull him so he was flat. I didn't want to do it. I didn't even want to touch him. He told me I had to take everything out of his pockets. But the look in his eyes, I didn't want to say no. And then Jason said we had to put him into the box. So we both did it because he wanted me to do it by myself, and I couldn't. Just being near the body, it's the creepiest thing I've ever seen.
Tasha also described using a taser on Ray Johnson.
Jason made me try using the taser on him to see if he was still alive.
What kind of taser was it?
It's a pen taser.
And where on Mr. Johnson was he touched with that?
The head.
Whereabouts?
Right by his ear.
Tasha Hubler said after they killed Ray, they stole his money and credit cards. They put his wallet, glasses, shoes, and empty change purse into a garbage bag, along with towels and pillowcases they used to clean the floor with, and the gloves they wore. They ditched the bag near the trunk after narrowly avoiding getting stuck.
Tasha largely told the truth to the police about what happened to Ray, and all the forensic evidence and evidence from other civilians backed her up. The plan was always to kill him. The plan was to have him come over to the house. In advance, they had taped up shields over the window. She'd saw that Jason Hubler had taped together 2 hammock poles, and she knew that that was going to be the murder weapon, and she witnessed Jason Hubler beat Ray to death. And then she had provided the trunk, which was a trunk that had existed and was identified by another civilian witness, a friend of theirs, as being a trunk that was in their house prior to the murder. And Ray was stuffed in that trunk and discarded.
That confession by Tasha Hubler would be important to the prosecution's case. The trial would get underway 2 years later, in March of 2011. Jason and Tasha Hubler were tried together in front of a jury, both accused of first-degree murder.
I had to leave sometimes. I had to leave the courtroom because I couldn't listen to what was being said. Even when she told, when she gave her testimony, and when she said Dad walked up to the door, I walked out at that point in time. I didn't want to hear.
Mike Ewenson was one of 2 prosecutors assigned to the case, who painted a picture of a murderous plot that was planned and premeditated. The reason behind it all? Jason and Tasha Hubler targeted and killed Ray Johnson for his truck.
Every once in a while you come across something in a file that just, you can't rationalize, it just doesn't make sense. So many other files have explanations where you look and realize somebody suffered from a drug addiction or mental health issues. And you realize, okay, that's where this offense germinated from. And so you have this explanation, and you can place some weight on it, and it may bring you a bit of solace to know that it's not pure evil. But in this case, he just set his sights on the truck, became infatuated with that truck, and was willing to trade a man's life for that truck.
The prosecution's theory was Jason Hubler first saw the new truck earlier that winter when Ray responded to the ad Mike Mooney flagged for him and stopped by their home. Court heard that less than 2 weeks before Ray was killed, Jason took Tasha to the flea market to meet Ray, and more importantly, so she could get a good look at his truck. The Hublers planned to lure Ray back to their home. They called him, offering tools for sale.
Jason lied to the police and said that Ray had fell down the stairs. That was a very provable lie in that the forensic evidence did not back up his version of events.
Jason Hubler maintained that this was an accidental fall down the stairs. As their joint trial continued, Tasha Hubler testified in her own defense. As she did the day of her police interview, Tasha admitted what happened. But she claimed she was under duress, that she was being controlled by her husband when they killed Ray Johnson.
Quite frankly, it was purely self-serving on her behalf to try to get out of any sort of finding of guilt by saying, look, I had no choice in the matter, because she'd given that full confession to the police. That statement was usable against her, and she was admitting a role in the murder. And so really the only thing she could stay on the stand at that point was, yeah, I did all those things, but I had no choice.
Then came an interesting twist in the trial proceedings.
What happened next in the court case took even veteran prosecutors by surprise. That's coming up on Crime Beat. As the month-long trial unfolded, Ray's family hoped there would be justice. Here now is Nancy Hixt with the conclusion of the evil and senseless plot against Ray Johnson.
What happened next in the trial took everyone by surprise, including the two prosecutors.
When Jason's lawyer was cross-examining Mrs. Hubler, he actually put to her, after she had claimed that Jason was violent and she wanted nothing to do with him and she just went along with the plan to murder Ray because she was scared of him, he actually put to her letters that Tasha Hubler had written Jason Hubler while in prison. And we as the Crown had no idea these letters had existed. They were under no duty to tell us and no duty to disclose them. And so this was all news to us unfolding before the jury.
These jailhouse-type letters are called kites. Basically, handwritten notes on pieces of paper that get passed between inmates. Tasha's notes to Jason looked like they'd been written by an infatuated, lovesick teenager, complete with bubble letters spelling out "I love you" and hearts drawn on the margins. She told him, "We will get through this mess," and said her love for him would never stop.
It came out of the blue. Like I said, we did not know they existed. And next thing you know, Tasha's being cross-examined by defense counsel for Jason Hubler about letters she had sent him. And clearly defense counsel for Jason Hubler was doing so to diminish her credibility, because they are advancing the argument that Ray had fell down the stairs and you couldn't believe anything Tasha Hubler said because she was a liar. But we were able to use them for another purpose. She was unable, in my view, to explain herself away from them, and I think that they played a large part in the jury rejecting her claims of duress, because the letters demonstrated that she was still in love with Jason Hubler. It was always the Crown's view that Jason had concocted this plan, that he was the driver of the plan. But two people can share a plan to commit first-degree murder, and if one person is, to put a number on it, 80% of the plan, another person is just 20% of the plan, they're both guilty of first-degree murder.
Court heard after the Hublers killed Ray Johnson, they went out for lunch with some friends, then used his credit card to go on a shopping spree. The Crown said all of the evidence pointed to their guilt.
Clearly there was a plan to get a hold of this truck, and there was a plan to kill him. We could prove to the jury that there were specific steps taken to complete that plan, including taping up the windows, having him come over to the house, getting the trunk ready, creating a murder weapon. So that all proved, a plan to commit the death of Ray. And then, of course, proving that he actually carried it out. And in this case, the forensic evidence of where the blood was located in the house, the medical evidence of the autopsy that occurred, of where the blows occurred and the manner of death, and we could clearly prove he had died based on a beating, and a beating with a weapon. So that proved it was a planned homicide. We had them in his vehicle and using his credit cards after the fact.
It took jurors just over 8 hours to reach their verdicts. They found both Jason and Tasha Hubler guilty of the first-degree murder of Ray Johnson. This was planned and premeditated.
I just felt a massive amount of relief when they returned those verdicts of guilty for first-degree murder for both of them.
In Canada, once convicted of first-degree murder, the sentence is automatic. Life in prison with no chance of parole for at least 25 years. Both Jason and Tasha Hubler addressed the courts.
And they both said they were sorry. I didn't feel that he was very sincere when he said he was sorry. I don't know about Tasha.
One by one, loved ones of Ray Johnson read tearful victim impact statements.
It was so hard on the whole family too, like not even just us. I mean, it affected our children, like really bad. And, our daughter married after that and had 2 children, and he never got to see those 2 kids, and he would have, or any of our grandchildren for that matter, and that would have been his great-grandchildren. And I know with my dad's strength that he'd still be alive today. I just know it.
Despite all of the pain and trauma they were living through, Ray Johnson's family showed extreme kindness to the families of the killers.
I felt so sorry for his dad, you know, because his dad was in the courtroom. And that was the only one that was really in there on his side. We approached him and we told him, we gave him a hug. We told him we understood because he was losing a son too, you know. And he cried, he was a nice man, and he said, you know, you have a baby and you love that baby. And they turned out doing something like this, and he knew his son had done it, you know.
Jason and Tasha Hubler appealed their convictions.
Just felt a bit unfair that our family had to go through more after going through the trial, and them being found guilty by 12 jurors, proven guilty. We just felt like it should be over. That should be the end of things.
Friday, a panel of appeal justices made their ruling, stating the case against Jason was overwhelming. The grounds of appeal raised by Jason are without merit. Jason's appeal is therefore dismissed. The ruling went on to state, in this case, the evidence was so overwhelming against Tasha as it was against Jason that a conviction was inevitable. There is no realistic possibility that a new trial would yield a different result.
Ray Johnson's case is one that both the prosecutor, Mike Ewenson, and the lead investigator, Patty McCallum, will always remember.
If I'm at a social event and someone says, well, what's one of the more difficult or emotional trials you've ever done? This is the first one I will mention. And it's not to say it's the only one, but just to have a man's life taken in such a terrible, callous fashion, out of pure greed by two people who did that and discarded his body in a rail yard. I wouldn't use the term very often that somebody is just purely evil, but these two would fit that description.
Just purely greed that put him in the crosshairs of two people who just wanted his truck.
Ray Johnson taught his family to always give people the benefit of the doubt. To have someone take advantage of his trust has truly shaken their faith in humanity. That's something they can never get back.
Yeah, I think I became a lot more cautious. I found myself locking my car door, which I still do. I get in my car, I lock my door right away. Yeah, I think you lose trust, you lose your sense of security.
Ray Johnson was the kind of guy who would have helped the Hublers if they had just asked.
We didn't understand it, and to this day I still don't understand. You know, and like Bonnie said, to choose a life over a vehicle, you know. And we know how kind our dad was, like how kind he was, and how he would have just given just about anything to anybody. He was just that kind of a person, you know. He probably looked at those two people and saw his own grandchildren, because they were about approximately the same age as my daughter.
More than a decade after his death, Ray Johnson's family still struggles with the loss.
That was Dad's baby picture.
That's cute.
He was a real cute little guy.
But they choose to focus on remembering the good times and know he spent his life helping others.
He left an impact on a lot of people's lives, and after that, so many people come up to us and said that it was so unbelievable, and you know, for it to happen to somebody like Dad, they couldn't believe it, and then they told us, like I said, how often he helped them and what he had done for them, and the stories that kept coming were, you know, it was one after the other. We were getting phone calls and cards and letters and people saying in these things, you know, your dad was so loved, and your dad did this for me, and your dad did this for me, and your dad fixed this, and we didn't even know these things because Dad didn't tell us that he'd done all this stuff. You know, we knew he was always helping us, but we didn't know that he was doing all these things for people because he wasn't one to brag about it.
Parole board documents show both Jason and Tasha Hubler have received escorted temporary absences from prison to attend personal matters, including Jason's grandmother's memorial service and the tea that followed. According to the latest parole decisions in this case, Jason is in a medium security facility, while Tasha is serving her time in a minimum security prison.
I'm Anthony Robart. Thank you for joining us tonight on Crime Beat.
Want more on this Crime Beat episode? Listen to my Crime Beat podcast now for free on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you find your favorite podcasts.